Gambit Chads, two high-rated opponents, two Busch-Gass Gambits, two kings that I had to track down in the middle of the board that went on a crazy run, so many sacrifices. Let's waste no more time getting right to it. Here is me playing Anonymous Chess-lk a few weeks ago in the Busch-Gass Gambit, who immediately surprised me after accepting it. So we have the Busch-Gass Gambit here with Bishop c5, Lichess hates it, of course, and my opponent accepts, and we play knight c6. And if you guys are new to the channel, the idea to the Busch-Gass Gambit, or one of the many, is that after takes, we want to play d takes c6, which is an excellent capture that I like to call it the Stafford capture. It comes from the Stafford Gambit. It opens the bishop, it opens the queen. We have opportunities to transpose into the Stafford, and even additional ideas to play f5 before playing knight to f6, to put lots of pressure on these points. You can find this idea covered in many places on my channel. But my opponent surprised me, not playing knight takes c6, and also not playing this other move, knight f3, which is also quite common to prepare this move d4. Not giving us the d takes c6 capture, so we need a strike in the center with d5. And after takes, queen takes, here we also have a lot of compensation for the pawn and a lot of really fun checkmating ideas. But my opponent played a brand new move to me, queen to h5. And Stockfish hates it because it says white has lost their advantage and now reads equality. But this is a very interesting move. So first of all, queen h5, I mean, it protects the knight, of course, from this trade. And it also threatens mate. But also, so it's like, what do you do? How do you defend mate, right? Because if I took this knight, then queen takes, it's check. It also hits all of these points, and I'm down a pawn, right? So this is not good. And then the other question being, how do you defend mate? If you play a move like g6, which is probably the most obvious way to defend mate, then knight takes c6. This is the interesting in-between move. Knight takes c6 here. If I take the queen, the knight takes over here, and at the end of this, I'm down a pawn. I'm down the original pawn. And if I recapture, then my bishop's hanging. So queen h5 actually has like a lot of various targets here, and so I had to come up with an idea. I played this move queen to e7, of which Stockfish approves. So lots of now targets here, and we defend f7. So my opponent took c6, and here I'm facing a decision, right? I ended up playing d takes c6, and I knew Stockfish would not approve, and white now has their advantage again because they're up a pawn. But the reason why Stockfish does not approve of queen h5 is I would play here queen takes e4 check. And now after something like queen e2, these trade queens, and now takes, we reach a completely equal endgame where I'm not going to be checkmating my opponent, but I got my pawn back and the position's completely equal. Alas, I did not want to do that, and it would not have made for a fun YouTube video, even if I won that game. And so I played d takes c6. And so here we kind of keep some of the same ideas. So your queen can make a lot of threats on f7 and e5 and c5, but my queen can also do that. Defend f7, hit e5, defended my bishop, and now also again attacks the e4 pawn. My opponent played knight c3 to defend e4, and knight f6, which is also the benefit of just dealing with the hits the queen makes, is that I have this very nice move with tempo, knight f6, and queen f3, which Stockfish does not approve of. Stockfish wanted this move queen to e2, because I think it wants this resource like pawn f3 to like fortify all these places and just to really like cling on to your extra pawn, right? In the game, queen to f3, bishop g4. I'm not sure what it does not like here, but we are getting very, very close to the queen sacrifice moment, which I'm so excited. And it was in this position that I was already planning in my queen sacrifice that actually came to fruition. And you will see, But in the game here, I could have played knight g4, hitting f2. The issue is knight d1. The engine still wants me to do this, but so knight d1 is the only way to defend f2, and then you kick out with h3. I guess this knight can retreat. So imagine, I don't know, I'm just making moves here, but then they can retreat to e5 tempo on the queen. Black has good compensation here, I think. Castling, the rook come to the center, and we're going to hit in the center where that king is, because white has very poor development. So, I mean, it's a gambit, right? We sacrifice the pawn. But bishop g4, queen steps up, and now I'm already going for my crazy sacrifice. The thing is, if I do nothing, I think white can kind of like patch up, play bishop here, and then, yeah, after this move f3, they're going to be able to castle and escape with their king and escape with their extra pawn. So I can't allow that. So here we go, sacrificing another pawn. My opponent eats it and castles. And it was at this moment that I'm already looking for my queen sacrifice, and I was very disappointed that it didn't work. But my secret idea, right, and I'm just trying to make this work, is to play here like knight takes e4, and after queen, so the queens are now hitting each other, right? And after queen takes, but it's check right now. But if it weren't check, we would have this great move, bishop takes f2, checkmate, right? It would be checkmate because this bishop guards the d1 square. So we're trying to make this work. If I lead with bishop takes f2, then the thing is, if this were pawn instead of knight, right, then I could like win the queen. But the issue is like knight takes would defend the queen. So okay, I'm trying to make these crazy things work. But the issue is, okay, so this is check, right? So we castle out of it. Castle out. We're down 2 pawns. And so now I'm like, okay, I'm gonna play knight takes e4 next, right? So if it's my move, I'm gonna play knight takes e4. You take my queen, I take your king, right? So and okay, if you take back, then it defends the queen, but I'll just take here, right? Okay, but my opponent played this move d3. I don't even know if they saw my idea, but d3, so it defends the queen. That's the issue. Defends the queen. The engine wanted this move f3 because it's very focused on castling long. So f3 blocks the bishop from stopping the long castle. Okay, d3. And so I'm like, okay, this bishop defends the queen. If it just didn't defend the queen, I just need to nick that queen over a little bit. Rook g8. I'll also get my last piece into the game, so rook g8's a good move. And then my opponent played the exact square that I wanted them to go to. It worked out beautifully. They played queen to h4, and the evaluation jumps from plus 0.5 to minus 8. I think you guys can find it. I've mentioned this tactical idea already, but I'm so proud of this move. The move is knight takes e4. Knight takes e4, and black is winning. So basically, I'm hitting the queen right now, so if they take my knight, I just take their queen. If they take over here, it's not check. It's not check, and this is checkmate. What a beautiful checkmate that would be. It did not happen in the game, because my opponent saw that much. But yes, so basically, this queen's not protected, right? So they can't just take my knight, because the queen is no longer defended by the bishop. So knight takes e4 here, and this now starts a crazy sequence. I still need to close out the game. So my opponent played knight takes e4, and so now I have a decision to make. Now I have a key decision to make. Do you just take the queen and then be like, okay, I have a queen for 2 pieces, and this is just a winning position. I can just win this because, like, you know, it's just a winning position. Or do you say, well, so far this is going to make a phenomenal YouTube video, and how could I look my YouTube viewers in the eye and not tell them that I played queen takes e4 check, not taking the queen, not even taking the queen, but sacrificing the queen one more time. And now if they take here, rook to d1. And the craziest thing about queen takes e4 is that Stockfish approves. This is Stockfish's #1 choice, and it even takes it about a little bit of time for it to realize that it's its #1 choice. But we played queen takes e4 here, and actually, yeah, I have the clocks here. So my opponent has 1 minute 22, and I have 14.8, and this is no increment. This is no increment on the clock here. So I had to win the rest of this game with 14.8 seconds on the clock. But queen takes e4, so yes, the point is takes and checkmate. This bishop is doing the Lord's work right there. So queen takes e4, so how do you even block this, right? So like bishop there, I could just take it. So absolutely crazy stuff. So bishop e3, now we go check over here. We go check over there. The queen's hanging now because the rook is guarding this, right? I don't have to checkmate, so they can take my queen. So we shift over, block, take this. Right, so it's like, oh, we're coming from all directions here at this king, and the king can't escape, and we've totally got him. This queen's totally out of the game. This rook is also doing a great job defending my bishop. Okay, so rook d1. I was hitting that, and now queen takes e3 check, and now the engine's actually evaluating to mate in 3. I missed the mate in 3. This lasted a few more moves, but the checkmate was all the more pleasing. Bishop d2. So the checkmate in 3 was queen to e5, and if bishop e2, we just take that, that's mate. If bishop e3, I believe we give this check. Rook d2, only legal move, rook d2. And then we give that checkmate. So these bishops, man, absolutely killer. So that was the checkmate in 3. Alas, I had 12 seconds on my clock here. So I gave this check with the piece that I felt like wasn't doing anything. So I gave that check. Bishop e2 is the only legal move. Bishop e2. I guess queen e7 was also possible. But this bishop can't move because of this pin. So bishop e2, we take it. Here, I just saved my queen. I don't know. I'm just taking more things, more threats. King over again, and here I'm just like, okay, let me just pick up the queen, take over there, here, and I told you I had to track down the king in the middle of the board. So we go check, king runs, check, bishop steps back for the check, king up again, and rook g4. So an absolutely wild game. My opponent surprised me with queen h5 in the Busch-Gass Gambit, but it wasn't even as crazy. This king run wasn't even as crazy as the king run from the next game I'm going to show you in the next Busch-Gass Gambit against a FIDE master. So this king run was even more wild. This was an even more difficult king to track down. So it starts out with another Busch-Gass Gambit. So here, so this is against a FIDE master. This is a couple weeks ago. This is 3+2. So I actually have increment this time. So bishop c5, okay, already it's reading blunders. Bishop c4, just for not taking the pawn. That's a blunder. Knight f6. For not defending the pawn, that's a blunder. Of course, if you guys are new to the channel, the idea is to play knight c6 in this position, gambit that, and we're going for some sacrifices here. Absolutely crazy lines here. I've had great success with it. This is so much fun. You have to check out the other Busch-Gass videos on my channel. But anyway, my opponent castled, another blunder because they're not taking it. Okay, and now from my Busch-Gass deniers video, we don't just defend the pawn and accept an equal position. We go for something very sharp here by playing knight takes e4, which is actually quite a good move. And it's very difficult to address if you're white. I've had so many players actually just play rook to e1, after which you just take and you're up a rook in that position. So my opponent then plays knight takes e5, like a better move. And so they're hitting f7, and we can get a symmetrical position by castling, but we're going to play for some sort of advantage, something concrete here. We play d5 to deal with f7. On the bishop, it steps back. And the idea in this position, the idea typically in these knight takes e4 lines, if you're hit again, or if you just want to, you take f2. You take f2, you trade everything here, and we're told like not to do this because a knight and bishop is more valuable than a rook and pawn, but we expose this king a great deal. So we can't play queen f6 check to win this knight because the knight can step back to f3, but we can go queen h4 check. And my opponent is now realizing, I mean, they're a FIDE master, if they go king g1, which is the most natural spot, it defends h2, it's the only spot that defends h2, then they will lose their knight after queen to d4 check. So they step back in the game f1, and I just take h2. Also hitting the knight in the back here. So knight steps back, give a check, step back, lose their queen. And here, the engine recommends me to actually hang on to the pawn with c6, after which I have a rook and 2 pawns for a bishop and knight. And the engine actually slightly prefers black, also because white's development is quite poor, and their king is in questionable situation there, whereas we're going to castle safe it down. But, you know me, sacrificing more things, I castle and let them take this pawn. So they still have not made a single move on this half of the board, as often happens to white in the Busch-Gass Gambit, actually. And now here, this very interesting idea that I've checked. It's actually Leela's favorite idea in these positions. And the move is a5. You can even think about, and stalkers like this move, you can even think about what the point is of a5. But the point is, so, like, this looks quite good, but we have no pieces other than the queen doing stuff. Right? All my pieces are here, and it's like, okay, how can I actually make a threat as soon as possible? The piece that we're activating right now is this rook. We're going to play rook a6 and either bring it to f6 or g6. And, I don't know, try and put the finishing touches on the king before my opponent develops. So my opponent tries developing, and now I'm developing. Rook a6. But my opponent tries developing, and now I shift over rook f6. The engine prefers slightly rook g6, which puts some pressure on g2. It doesn't actually make a threat. But, okay, I mean, we want to play bishop g4 next, and we want to bring in the rest of our pieces and make some sort of attack here. But I play in the game rook f6, and I get myself into a little bit of trouble. So bishop f3 blocks. So, I mean, that bishop's done a good job. My opponent is doing a good job holding everything together and trying to bring out the rest of their pieces. And I play bishop g4. So this was my idea, right? I'm putting a lot of pressure on this. So if my opponent just does nothing, then I'm going to take this, and it would force g takes f3. Something I want, right? Queen takes would lose the queen. Knight takes is illegal. So g takes f3, and then, okay, I can start putting even more pressure on that knight, like queen g2 check and such, right? So that was not to be, because the move I missed was a very good move by my opponent, and it's why they developed their pieces, and it's knight e4 here. So knight e4 is a very good move. So now if I take f3, we're going to get to the part where this king goes flying across the board, I promise. I promise this king will go flying. But if I take f3 here, the issue is they have this great in-between move, check, and here I'm just losing, because I have to recapture here. I can't take their queen, and then they take my bishop. So here, I figured I pretty much have no choice. Better go for it. I didn't see knight e4. I didn't see that was going to be check, but I better go for it. Rook takes f3. So the engine's actually reading like +2, but my opponent made their first mistake of the game in this position. So I'm down a bit of material here. What am I down? I'm down a knight for a pawn. I'm down a knight for a pawn. So this was their first mistake of the game, actually. In f2. And I think it was pretty much their only mistake of the game. They only had 2 legal moves. They had so many legal moves in like all these other situations, and they played very precisely. Only when they had 2 legal moves, a coin flip was the wrong coin flip. King e2 was more precise. And the point is that when I give a check here, this knight can come back to block on the f2 square. So queen g2 check. Instead of this king having to go running, like it did in the game, knight to f2 would be possible. And then here they can block here, so they can bundle up and just barely survive and cling to their extra piece. And I guess this king eventually finds safety somewhere. But alas, in the game they played king f2, and I played this very, very precise move, not playing queen g2 check right away. Actually, they would play king e3 there, but playing this move f5 first, before this knight has this f2 square. So now the issue is, when this knight retreats, if this knight were to retreat, queen g2 check, this king can't go to e1 because they just lose the knight. They block the queen's defense. So queen g2 check, the king would have to go to e3, and now I've played this move f5 already to dislodge this knight, and rook e8 check, and the king has to go flying even further up the board at this point. So my opponent did not want that. And so after f5, they just were like, okay, I'll hold this blockade even if I have to lose the knight. They step over queen e1. I think this bishop f4 was best, but it's still losing for white anyway. Queen e1, the point was to defend the queen. Bishop f4, I understand, also protects the queen with the rook. But the point is to defend the queen, and now this knight is free. Right? This knight can take the bishop, for instance, because there's no queen hanging here. The king is defending the queen. It unpins this way. Regardless, though, so I give this check, king up, and now, and now again, I could just be winning by just taking this knight. I could be winning by just grabbing my material and being like, okay, after takes, the material is equal, and their king's on e3, right? So even if just something like knight c6, or even just like eating pawns or giving checks, whatever, but I don't know, I'd probably just play knight c6, complete my development. It's awkward that my knight's here and my rook has moved, but I would be winning in this position by just grabbing my knight back. But alas, I sensed that this was YouTube content. And I wanted to give that king a wild ride and track it down, check, forcing king d4. It was not a mouse slip. I wanted to bring the pawn there and not take the knight. So the king has to step all the way out to d4. And now it's like, okay, we gotta track it down. King's on the run. It's an outlaw. We gotta track it down. We can't let it run over here. Maybe there's some safety over there. Maybe my pieces aren't over there. So we take this. We actually let the bishop fall. So here in this position, we'd be down like 2 pieces, but we'd give check over here. And so, for example, if king d5, then I could take this. And if king e6, where's the mate? Where's that mate? What do we got? Rook e8, maybe? Or knight d4? Oh, wait, this. Check. King d7 only move. Checkmate. Okay. What a crazy mate. That's actually all forced. That's actually their only legal moves. Okay, but I was just trying ideas there. Queen takes e2. I just had the idea of I wanted to bring the king closer and closer and closer. Reel it in until we can snatch it. So queen c3, which is a very logical move played by my opponent to prevent like the queen from doing things this way and shield some additional squares for the king. So we developed with check. The knight's first move of the game is a check. The knight's very first move of the game is a check. I think that's kind of an achievement unlocked. I think that's something that's very hard to do. But so we bring that king even more forward. King c4 is actually, well, the reason it says it's a mistake is because it's recommending queen takes knight, after which I'd be up a queen. And they'd actually have a few pieces, but their king would still be in the middle of the board. So we still got to track this guy down. So king c4, check over here. King c5, check over here. Everybody's helping. All these pawns, everybody's helping. This queen is now defending the knight. King d5 and rook d8. Or it's not checkmate, but they only have one legal move. Look at this. The knight's guarding the square. The bishop's guarding this square. The queen's guarding everything here. But, okay, the king's in the middle of the board. I don't think it was going to end well. Knight d6 is the only move, and rook takes d6. That would be checkmate. So, crazy Busch-Gass Gambit games. I hope these games inspire you guys and give you some ideas in the Busch-Gass Gambit. And sheriffs in town tracking down outlaw kings. And thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe, and have a great day.